Rain lashed against the asphalt like bullets, drowning out the distant hum of the city. The alley stank of ozone and iron. Kaelen Thorne stepped out of his idling sedan, the water instantly soaking his cheap suit. He didn't run. He moved with a terrifying economy of motion, sliding across the slick pavement toward the figure slumped against the brick wall. Blue lights flickered weakly down the street, reflecting off the pools of oil and blood. Officer Rylin Vance wasn't moving. Her service weapon lay 3 feet away, the slide locked back. Empty. Kaelen dropped to his knees, the wet concrete biting into his trousers. He didn't panic. His heart rate didn't even spike. He placed 2 fingers against her carotid artery, his eyes scanning the darkness for movement. The pulse was there, but it was thready, fluttering like a trapped moth. She had taken a round to the upper thoracic cavity, just above the vest line. Bright, oxygenated blood pumped out in spurts, mixing with the rain to form a pink river running toward the drain. He saw the problem instantly. Subclavian artery nicked. She had 90 seconds, maybe less. He reached into his jacket pocket. No medical bag. No trauma kit. Just the items of a man coming home from a late-night job interview. He pulled out a heavy Parker pen and a clean handkerchief. He unscrewed the pen with a snap, discarding the ink cartridge and keeping the hollow metal tube. He looked at Rylin's face. She was pale, lips turning blue, eyes rolling back into her head. "Stay," he commanded. It wasn't a request. It was an order given with the weight of someone who had commanded death to wait before. He ripped open her uniform collar, buttons scattering across the wet ground. He needed to tamponade the vessel, but standard pressure wouldn't hold. He had to improvise a shunt. He pressed his thumb directly into the wound, digging deep past the clavicle. Rylin gasped, a wet, gargling sound, her eyes snapping open in shock. She tried to flail, to fight him off, her survival instinct misfiring. Kaelen didn't flinch. He leaned his weight into her shoulder, pinning her against the rough brick. "Don't fight me," he growled low, his voice cutting through the storm. "But before we do, if you want to be entered in our video shout-out giveaway, simply subscribe now, then comment, 'I subbed,' and you will be entered." This video's shout-out giveaway goes to Edward Patrick from Tennessee. Thanks for being part of the familia and supporting. Now, it's time to get back into the story. Kaelen jammed the hollow metal tube into the wound, bypassing the tear to create a temporary airway and pressure point simultaneously. It was a move that didn't exist in any EMT handbook. It was battlefield improvisation, something taught only in black sites where hospitals were a myth. He took the handkerchief, twisted it into a tourniquet around the base of the tube, and used Rylin's own radio cord to bind it tight. The spurting stopped. The blood flow slowed to a manageable ooze. Sirens wailed, louder this time. "Close." Kaelen checked his watch. He had been there 45 seconds. He looked at the work. It was ugly, brutal, and utterly perfect. It would hold until surgery. He wiped his bloody hands on the rain-slicked wall. He couldn't be here. If they ran his prints, if they looked at the camera footage and saw how he moved, the life he had built for his daughter would burn to ash. He looked at Rylin one last time. "You live today," he whispered. He stood up, vanishing back into the rain just as the first squad car screeched around the corner, blinding the alley with high beams. The operating room at St. Jude's Trauma Center was chaos controlled by shouting. Dr. Heartwarming Thorne, no relation, stared at the wound in Officer Rylin Vance's neck. The vascular surgeon had been working for 20 years, seen gang hits, car wrecks, and industrial accidents. He had never seen this. He held up the Parker pen tube with a pair of forceps, turning it under the harsh surgical lights. The nurse beside him looked nauseous. "Who stabilized her?" Heartwarming demanded, his voice echoing off the tile. "The EMTs said she was like this when they arrived." "Who put this in?" "Report says an unidentified male found her," the nurse replied, handing him a clamp. "Left the scene before units secured the area." Heartwarming looked back at the patient. The tube was positioned with millimeter precision. It bypassed the jagged tear in the artery, maintaining blood flow to the arm while stopping the hemorrhage. If it had been a millimeter to the left, she would have had a stroke. A millimeter to the right, she would have bled out in the ambulance. This wasn't first aid. This was plumbing on a human body performed in the dark, in the rain, with office supplies. "Get me the police captain," Heartwarming said, stripping off his gloves. "I need to tell him he's looking for a ghost." Captain Marcus Brackus paced the waiting room, his boots squeaking on the linoleum. He was a large man, neck thick with muscle, eyes cold and predatory. He wasn't worried about Rylin Vance surviving. He was worried about what she had seen before she got shot. The hit was supposed to be clean. No witnesses. Now, he had a loose end breathing on a ventilator and a mystery Samaritan who had ruined a perfectly good execution. Dr. Heartwarming pushed through the double doors. Brackus stopped pacing. "Is she alive?" "She's stable," Heartwarming said, crossing his arms. But Captain, we need to talk about the person who saved her. That makeshift shunt? It's military grade. I've only read about techniques like that in classified triage manuals from the overseas wars. Whoever did this understands anatomy better than half my staff. Brackus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital air conditioning. A witness was bad. A highly trained witness was a catastrophe. You're saying a doctor found her? I'm saying a killer found her, Eris corrected. That kind of medicine is only learned in places where people are being blown apart. Find him, Captain. Because whoever he is, he's dangerous. Brackus nodded slowly, his mind already racing. He didn't need to find a hero to give him a medal. He needed to find a threat and bury it. Kaelen Thorne sat at his kitchen table, the silence of the house pressing against his ears. The smell of bacon grease and brewing coffee filled the small, modest kitchen. He stared at his hands. They were clean now, scrubbed raw with bleach, but he could still feel the sticky warmth of Rylin's blood. He clenched his fist, the knuckle scarring over old wounds that told stories he had never shared with anyone. Dad? Kaelen snapped his head up. Zola stood in the doorway, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had lost an ear years ago. She was 7, with eyes that saw too much and a smile that kept Kaelen from putting a bullet in his own head. Hey, Bug, he said, forcing the tension out of his shoulders. Breakfast is almost ready. Pancakes. Your favorite. Zola climbed onto the chair, her legs swinging. You were late last night. I heard the car. Job interview ran long, Kaelen lied. It was an easy lie. He had become an expert at them. The boss had a lot of questions. Did you get it? We'll see. Kaelen flipped a pancake, the batter sizzling. He hadn't just been late. He had spent 2 hours driving a circuitous route, checking for tails, cleaning his car, burning his clothes in a rusted barrel 3 towns over. He was a paranoid man because he had reasons to be. He was supposed to be dead. The file on Sergeant Kaelen Thorne said he died in a helicopter crash in the Hindu Kush 6 years ago. The man flipping pancakes was a ghost named Kaelen Freeman. A heavy knock rattled the front door. Not a polite neighborly rap. A police knock. Authoritative. Demanding. Kaelen froze. He looked at Zola. Eat your food, Bug. Don't move. He walked to the living room, his movements shifting. The dad slouch vanished. He moved on the balls of his feet, weight forward, ready to kill. He checked the peephole. 2 uniformed officers. And behind them, a black SUV with tinted windows. Kaelen exhaled slowly. They found him. The dashcam. He had been careless. He opened the door. Can I help you? Mr. Freeman? The older officer asked, hand resting near his holster. We need you to come down to the station. Regarding an incident on 4th Street last night. I was home all night, Kaelen said, his voice flat. Your car was seen on traffic cams exiting the area moments after an officer down call, the officer said. And we found a partial print on the officer's belt buckle. Matches a jagged scar pattern. Mind showing us your hands? Kaelen looked at the officers, measuring distance, reaction time. He could drop both of them before they cleared leather. He could take the keys, grab Zola, and be in Mexico by sunrise. But Zola was in the kitchen eating pancakes. He couldn't run. Not anymore. He held out his hands, palms up. The scars were there, a map of violence. I'll get my coat, Kaelen said. The interrogation room was a concrete box designed to break people. Mirrors on one wall, a steel table bolted to the floor, the air stale with sweat and fear. Kaelen sat perfectly still. He didn't fidget. He didn't ask for water. He watched Captain Brackus enter, flanked by a younger detective who looked like he was trying too hard to be tough. Brackus threw a file on the table. It slid across and hit Kaelen's folded hands. Mr. Freeman. Or is it Thorne? The fingerprints came back with a lot of red flags. Classified flags. Kaelen didn't blink. My name is Kaelen Freeman. I'm a janitor at the district high school. A janitor who performs vascular surgery with a Parker pen, Brackus sneered, leaning in. He smelled of cheap cologne and tobacco. Officer Vance is alive because of you. Most people would stick around for the applause. You ran. Why? I don't like hospitals, Kaelen said. I think you don't like cops, Brackus countered. I think you were at the scene because you were part of the hit. Maybe you grew a conscience at the last second. Or maybe you wanted her to survive so you could finish her off later when she talked. If I wanted her dead, she'd be dead, Kaelen said. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. And if I was part of a hit, you wouldn't have found a print. You wouldn't have found a car. You wouldn't have found me. Brackus slammed his hand on the table. Don't play games with me, janitor. I have federal agents blowing up my phone asking why a ghost is walking around my city. The Pentagon has an alert on your biometrics. Who are you? I'm a single father, Kaelen said, locking eyes with Brackus. And I want to go pick up my daughter from school. You aren't going anywhere, Brackus hissed. We're holding you as a material witness. Maybe a suspect. Depends on what Vance says when she wakes up. She'll say I saved her, Kaelen stated. Unless she doesn't wake up, Brackus murmured, almost to himself. It was a slip. A tiny, arrogance-fueled slip. Kaelen caught it. His eyes narrowed. This wasn't an investigation. This was a containment operation. Brackus wasn't looking for the shooter. Brackus knew the shooter. You need to let me go, Kaelen said softly. Because if you keep me here, the people who actually shot her are going to finish the job. And this time, I won't be there to stop the bleeding. The phone in Brackus's office buzzed. He picked it up, watching Kaelen through the one-way glass. Talk to me. It's confirmed, a distorted voice on the other end said. The Prince Match Project Ether. He's a Tier 1 asset. Combat Medic, Special Activities Division. He was the guy they sent in when Delta Force got stuck. He's not just a soldier, Brackus. He's a surgeon with a rifle. Brackus wiped sweat from his forehead. He's in my interrogation room. He knows. I saw it in his eyes. He figured out I'm involved. Then you have a problem, the voice said. If he walks out of there, he goes to the feds. If the feds dig into the Vance shooting, they find the cartel payroll. They find you. They find us. So what do? I can't shoot him in the station. Release him, the voice commanded. Let him go home. We'll hit him there. Clean. Make it look like the cartel tying up loose ends. Burn the house. The daughter too. No witnesses. Brackus felt a surge of bile, but he swallowed it. He was too deep in the mud to turn back now. Consider it done. Brackus walked back into the interrogation room. He forced a smile that looked like a rictus of pain. You verified. Pentagon says you're a retired consultant. My mistake. You're free to go, Mr. Freeman. Kaelen stood up slowly. He didn't buy it. The shift was too abrupt. The predator in his brain was screaming. Just like that? Just like that. Thank you for your service, Brackus mocked. Kaelen walked out of the precinct, the sunlight hurting his eyes after the dim room. He checked his phone. 3 missed calls from the babysitter. He texted her, coming now. Pack Zola's bag, he didn't go to his car. He knew it would be bugged or rigged. He walked 3 blocks, ducked into a crowded subway station, and vanished into the crowd. He wasn't going home to sleep. He was going to war. Night had fallen by the time Kaelen reached his small suburban house. He parked the stolen sedan down the street. The house looked peaceful, dark. But Kaelen knew better. The silence was heavy. He had sent Zola to stay with his old handler's widow an hour ago. The house was empty. It was bait. He entered through the basement window, moving silently through the laundry room. He didn't turn on the lights. He could navigate the space by memory and air currents. He reached under the floorboards in the pantry and pulled out a lockbox. Inside was a suppressed 45 Hong Kong dollars and a combat knife. He checked the load. 7 rounds. Glass shattered in the living room. Footsteps. Heavy, tactical boots. Not cartel thugs. These were pros. They moved in a stack, sweeping the room. Kaelen waited in the shadows of the kitchen. As the point man crossed the threshold, Kaelen struck. He didn't shoot. He grabbed the barrel of the man's rifle, twisted it up, and drove the combat knife into the exposed gap of the man's body armor, right into the subclavian, the same spot Rylin had been shot. Symmetry. The man dropped without a sound. The second man turned. Kaelen used the falling body as a shield. He fired twice. Phut-phut, 2 rounds to the chest, cracking the ceramic plate, knocking the wind out of the target. Kaelen closed the distance, sweeping the man's legs and delivering a hammer fist to the trachea. Clear, a voice whispered from the radio on the dead man's vest. Target is not in the bedroom. Kaelen picked up the radio. Target is in the kitchen, he whispered back. Come and get me. He moved to the hallway. 3 more tangos. They opened fire, bullets chewing through the drywall. Kaelen slid across the floor, firing under the smoke. He took one in the shoulder, a graze that burned like a branding iron. He didn't slow down. He killed the lights at the breaker box, plunging the house into total darkness. Now they were in his world. The screams started 5 seconds later. Rylin Vance woke up to the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Her throat felt like it was stuffed with razor blades. She tried to move her hand, but it was strapped down. Easy, officer, a nurse said, appearing at her side. You've been out for 2 days. You had surgery. Rylin blinked, memory rushing back. The alley. The setup. Her partner, Miller, had driven her there, told her it was a confidential informant meet. Then Miller had driven away just as the shooter stepped out. Miller was dirty. Brackus was dirty. The man, Rylin croaked. The man in the rain. He saved you, the nurse said. But the police? Captain Brackus said he's a suspect. They released him, but there's an APB out now. They say he's armed and dangerous. Rylin's heart hammered against her ribs. Brackus was framing the savior. Phone, she whispered. Give me, phone. I can't, honey, you need to rest. Phone. Rylin rasped, tears of frustration leaking from her eyes. The nurse hesitated, then handed over the cell phone on the bedside table. Rylin's fingers trembled as she dialed the only internal affairs number she remembered. It rang and rang. Dead line. Brackus had locked down her communications. She was trapped. Suddenly, the door to her room slid open. It wasn't a doctor. It was Kaelen. He wore a blood-stained hoodie, his face grim. He looked like a nightmare. Rylin tried to scream, but he put a finger to his lips. I'm not here to hurt you, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. I'm here because Brackus sent a hit squad to my house tonight. He thinks you know too much. Which means you aren't safe here. Brackus, Rylin managed to say. He set me up. I know, Kaelen said. He began unhooking her monitors. We're leaving. Now. I can't walk, she wheezed. Good thing I carried 100 pounds of gear up mountains, Kaelen said. He scooped her up, for lines and all. Hold on. This is going to get loud. The hospital exit was blocked. 2 uniformed officers stood by the elevators, hands on their weapons. They weren't regular patrol. They were Brackus's goons. Kaelen saw them from the reflection in the safety mirror. Hold this, Kaelen said, pressing a stolen scalpel into Rylin's hand. He set her down in a wheelchair he grabbed from the nurse's station. Head down. Kaelen rounded the corner, pushing the empty wheelchair at a sprint. The officers drew their weapons. Halt. Kaelen shoved the wheelchair violently toward them, diving to the floor. The officers fired at the chair, blowing the padding apart. Kaelen slid between them, sweeping the legs of the one on the left. The officer fell, his gun skittering across the floor. The second officer turned, but Kaelen was already inside his guard. He delivered a palm strike to the chin, snapping the man's head back. Kaelen grabbed the first officer's radio. Code 99, 3rd floor. Officer down, he shouted into the mic. Chaos. He needed chaos. He ran back, scooped Rylin up from the alcove where he'd hidden her, and kicked open the stairwell door. Where are we going? Rylin groaned, the movement tearing at her stitches. Roof, Kaelen said. Extraction. You have a helicopter? No, Kaelen gritted his teeth as he climbed. I have a phone call I didn't want to make. They burst onto the roof. The rain had stopped, leaving the city glittering below. Kaelen pulled out a burner phone and dialed a number he had memorized 10 years ago. A number that went straight to a desk in the Pentagon that didn't officially exist. Asset 4 Alpha requests immediate exfil, Kaelen said into the phone. Location, St. Jude's Hospital roof. Cargo, high-value witness. Hostiles, compromised local law enforcement. For Alpha, the voice on the line was cool, detached. You've been dead a long time. Why should we help you? Because I have the evidence that links the Sinaloa cartel to the NYPD hierarchy, Kaelen lied. He didn't have it yet, but he knew Brackus did. And if I die, it goes to the New York Times. There was a pause. ETA 4 minutes. Keep your head down. The stairwell door blasted open. Brackus stepped out, holding a shotgun. He wasn't alone. 3 men in tactical gear fanned out. End of the line, Ghost, Brackus yelled over the wind. Kaelen dragged Rylin behind a massive HVAC unit. Stay down, he commanded. He's going to kill us, Rylin whispered. He's going to try, Kaelen corrected. He checked his stolen pistol. 2 rounds left. Brackus advanced, shotgun raised. You think the feds are coming? I own the airspace tonight. Throw out the gun, Kaelen. Let's make this quick. Kaelen looked at the vents on the HVAC unit. Steam pressure. He aimed his pistol at the pressure valve directly next to Brackus's head. He didn't shoot the man, he shot the bolt. The valve exploded. A jet of superheated steam blasted out with the force of a jet engine. Brackus screamed, dropping the shotgun as the scalding vapor blinded him. The tactical team hesitated. That was enough. Kaelen vaulted over the unit. He was a blur of violence. He took the first man down with a throat punch, grabbed his rifle, and double-tapped the second man. The third man fired, hitting Kaelen in the vest he had stripped off the hit squad at his house. The impact cracked a rib, but Kaelen didn't stop. He drove the rifle but into the man's face. Brackus was on his knees, clawing at his burned face. Kaelen kicked him onto his back, aiming the rifle at his head. Do it. Brackus screamed. Kill me. You're a killer, that's all you are. Kaelen's finger tightened on the trigger. He wanted to. For Zola. For Rylin. For every year he had spent hiding. Kaelen, don't. Rylin shouted from behind the unit. If you kill him, you're the monster they say you are. We need him alive. Kaelen froze. The roar of a helicopter drowned out the city. A Blackhawk, painted matte black with no markings, rose over the edge of the building. Floodlights blinded them. "Drop the weapon," a loudspeaker boomed. Kaelen looked at Brackus, then at Rylin. He lowered the rifle. He wasn't a killer. Not tonight. He knelt and zip-tied Brackus's hands with a fluid motion. "You're under arrest, Captain," Kaelen whispered. The debriefing room at the Pentagon was quiet. The polished mahogany table reflected the sterile lights. Kaelen sat in a chair that cost more than his car. His wounds were bandaged, his suit replaced with clean tactical fatigues they had given him. Across from him sat General Vance, Rylin's uncle. The connection Kaelen hadn't known about. "You saved my niece," the general said. "And you exposed a corruption ring that went all the way to the governor's office. Brackus is singing like a bird to cut a deal." "I just wanted to go home," Kaelen said. "We know who you are, Thorne," the general said, sliding a dossier across the table. "Project Ether. You were the best field medic we ever had. We thought you were dead. Now that we know you're not, we need you back. Your rank is restored. Back pay. Full benefits. We have a team that needs a handler." Kaelen looked at the file. It was a ticket back to the life. The adrenaline. The purpose. The violence. It was everything he was built for. Then he looked at the phone on the table. A picture of Zola sleeping, clutching her rabbit, filled the screen. "I'm not that man anymore," Kaelen said, pushing the file back. "I'm a janitor. And I have a daughter who needs help with her math homework." The general studied him. "The world is on fire, Thorne. You really going to walk away?" "The world will always burn." Kaelen stood up, wincing at his cracked rib. "But my world is waiting for pancakes." He turned and walked toward the door. "Thorne," the general called out. "If we need you, really need you?" Kaelen paused, hand on the doorknob. He looked back, a small, sad smile on his face. "Lose my number." He walked out into the hallway. Rylin was there, in a wheelchair, her neck bandaged. She held out a hand. Kaelen took it. "Thank you," she said. "Stay safe, officer," Kaelen said. He walked out of the building, into the bright DC sunlight. He hailed a cab. "Union Station," he told the driver. He leaned back and closed his eyes. It was over. But as the cab merged into traffic, Kaelen checked the mirrors. Force of habit. Or maybe, just maybe, he knew that ghosts never really got to rest. He saw a black SUV 3 cars back. It changed lanes when he did. Kaelen smiled. Let them come. He'd be ready.